Stranger Things is officially over, and the finale might be the most confusing, divisive, and debated episode the show has ever released. Did 11 really die? Was Vecna ever truly in control, or was he just another pawn? And why does the ending feel like it answered everything and nothing at the same time? Because once you start pulling on the threads of this finale, the entire story changes. Let's break it down. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Frame Drop, your go-to channel for movie and TV breakdowns, reviews, and honest discussions about the stories everyone's watching. Today, we're breaking down the Stranger Things Season 5 finale, explaining the ending, the biggest unanswered questions, and what it all actually means. And yes, full spoilers ahead. The biggest question coming out of the finale is also the simplest. Did 11 really die? And the show very clearly wants you to think she did. After the group finally defeats Vecna and severs the connection to the Mind Flayer, they initiate the final plan, detonating the exotic matter to destroy the Upside Down completely. Everyone escapes back to the right side up. Everyone except 11. She stays behind at the gateway, and it's not because she can't leave. It's because she chooses not to. Earlier in the episode, Carly tells 11 something crucial, that there will always be people like Brenner, like Dr. K, who will hurt the people she loves just to get to her. And 11 realizes something devastating. As long as she exists in their world, her friends will never truly be safe. So when the Upside Down begins collapsing, 11 doesn't run. She stands there and lets it happen, which leads us to believe that 11 sacrifices herself permanently. But then the finale throws one last twist at us. 18 months later, during a Dungeons & Dragons session, Mike tells a story. In this story, the party's mage, clearly representing 11, didn't actually die. Instead, she tricked everyone using illusion magic. Carly's powers made it appear as though she was destroyed along with the Upside Down. But in reality, 11 escaped and went off to live peacefully in a paradise somewhere far away. And here's the key detail. This isn't shown to us. It's told to us through Mike, the storyteller. And that distinction matters a lot. Earlier in the season, Hopper talks about how there are two paths Mike can take after losing 11. One path is guilt, believing her death is his fault. The other is acceptance, choosing to believe that she found peace. Mike's story isn't confirmation, it's coping. It's a way for him and the group to live with the loss, because when you actually examine the timeline, the survival theory starts to fall apart. Carly was already dead long before 11 reached the gateway. She was gone before the abyss, before the final confrontation, before the explosion. There's no logical window where Carly could have used her powers to fake 11's death. And more importantly, thematically, it doesn't fit the story Stranger Things has been telling for 5 seasons. 11's entire journey was about finding where she belonged. Her paradise was never a distant, unknown place. It was Hawkins, it was Hopper, it was Mike, it was her friends. So if you ask me, 11 didn't survive. She chose to die so the people she loved could finally live. And that makes her sacrifice far more powerful, even if it hurts. But her death also directly ties into something bigger, because 11 didn't just defeat Vecna. She exposed the truth about him. For years, the biggest mystery in Stranger Things has been this. Was Vecna controlling the Mind Flayer? Or was the Mind Flayer controlling Vecna? The finale finally answers that question, and the answer is uncomfortable. Vecna believed he was in control. He believed the Mind Flayer needed him, that he wasn't a vessel, but a partner. But everything we see suggests the opposite. When Henry was first exposed to the Mind Flayer, the scientists warned him. They told him to resist, because it wouldn't just consume him, it would consume everything. And that's exactly what happened. The Mind Flayer didn't choose Henry because he was strong. It chose him because he was vulnerable, because he already had darkness inside him, and in the finale, that truth becomes impossible to ignore. Vecna is physically connected to the Mind Flayer, embedded beneath its core, not above it, not commanding it, sustaining it, which reframes his entire arc. Vecna wasn't the final boss, he was the final victim. Now let's talk about the final confrontation, because on paper, this should have been the most intense battle in the entire series. Vecna, the Mind Flayer, the Abyss, the Upside Down's heart, everything at stake. But instead, it felt strangely easy. Vecna is restrained, interrupted, overpowered faster than expected. And the Mind Flayer, once this abstract, unstoppable horror, becomes a physical creature that's defeated surprisingly quickly. There's tension in the visuals, the design is still intimidating, but the threat never fully lands. At no point does it feel like the group is truly about to lose. And when Joyce ultimately delivers the killing blows to Vecna, the moment feels symbolic, but rushed. His death is less a climax and more a conclusion. Once the Mind Flayer's heart is destroyed, everything just stops. Which raises a bigger question. If Vecna and the Mind Flayer were connected, shouldn't this have been their most powerful form? Instead, it feels like the show intentionally pulls back, choosing resolution over terror. And that choice defines the entire finale, but defeating the Upside Down was only half the ending. Because once the dust settles, Stranger Things still has to answer one final question. What happens next? Who gets a happy ending? Who doesn't? And whether the show actually earned its goodbye. Because the epilogue changes everything, and that's where things get even more complicated. The Upside Down is gone, Vecna is dead, 11 is at peace. But endings aren't just about how the villain falls, they're about what happens after. And Stranger Things spends nearly 45 minutes answering that question. So let's talk about the epilogue. Who got their ending, who didn't, and whether the show actually earned its goodbye. 18 months later, the world has moved on. Hawkins is healing, life looks normal again, and the chaos of the Upside Down feels like a distant memory. This is where the finale becomes extremely divisive because on one hand, this epilogue is doing something important. It's showing us that the characters survived, not just physically, but emotionally. On the other hand, it drags. 45 minutes is a long time to live in closure, especially after the main threat has already been resolved. The pacing slows dramatically, scenes linger, dialogue leans heavily into nostalgia, and at times it feels less like a finale and more like a montage of where are they now moments. It's intentional, but whether it works depends entirely on how much patience you have for sentimentality. Let's break down the major character endings, not just what happens to them, but what it means. Hopper and Joyce finally get engaged. After years of loss, trauma, and near-death experiences, they choose stability. They move away from Hawkins so Hopper can take a new position. It's not flashy, but it's earned. Their ending represents something Stranger Things rarely allowed its characters to have: peace. Mike becomes a writer, which makes perfect sense. He's always been the storyteller, the dungeon master, the one who turns chaos into narrative. After losing 11, writing becomes how he processes grief and keeps her memory alive. It's quiet, but it fits. Will's ending is one of the most important and understated. He leaves Hawkins, finds a place where he can truly be himself, where he's accepted. After years of being defined by trauma and connection to the Upside Down, Will finally gets autonomy. His story isn't about power, it's about identity, and in that sense, his ending works beautifully. Dustin continues learning, still curious, still brilliant, but now he balances intelligence with adventure. He grows up without losing his spark, which is exactly what fans wanted for him. Lucas and Max end up together, they settle down. It's simple, and that simplicity is the point. Their arc was about choosing hope, even when things felt broken beyond repair. Steve becomes a baseball coach, and honestly, it's perfect. Steve's entire journey has been about stepping into responsibility, becoming a protector, a mentor, a leader. Coaching is just a natural extension of that growth. Jonathan continues making films. Robin works at the radio station. Nancy drops out of Emerson and takes a job at the Hawkins Herald. This choice is huge, because it shows Nancy choosing impact over prestige. She doesn't chase what she thought she wanted, she chooses where she can make a difference. And that decision quietly defines her entire arc. One of the strongest moments in the finale doesn't involve the original group at all. It's the younger kids, down in the basement, playing Dungeons and Dragons, just like season 1. This scene is symbolic. The torch has been passed. The original group lays their binders down, not because the adventure failed, but because it succeeded. They survived long enough for someone else to dream, and that might be the most Stranger Things ending possible. So let's be real. Did the finale work? Yes and no. What worked? Emotional closure, strong character resolutions, Hopper and Eleven's relationship, the themes of sacrifice and acceptance. What didn't? The final battle felt rushed. The Mind Flayer lost its horror. Vecna felt less threatening than in season 4. The stakes never fully landed. Too much story packed into too little conflict. For a show that once thrived on fear and uncertainty, the finale feels safe. There's never a moment where you truly believe the group won't win, and that's a problem, especially when the fate of the entire world is on the line. Season 4 set an incredibly high bar. It was darker, scarier, more focused. Vecna felt terrifying. The horror was back at the core of the show. Season 5, by comparison, leans more into nostalgia than tension. It wants to say goodbye gently, and while that's understandable, it does come at the cost of suspense. Stranger Things didn't fail its ending, but it didn't fully capitalize on it either. The finale doesn't ruin the show. It doesn't tank the legacy, but it does feel like it needed more time. Not a longer episode, but more space. More room to explore the abyss. More time with the Mind Flayer's return. More weight behind the final confrontation. Instead, it settles for being okay, and maybe that's enough. Stranger Things will be remembered for its characters, its atmosphere, and the way it captured lightning in a bottle back in Season 1. The ending doesn't erase that. It just reminds us how hard it is to say goodbye. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think 11 really died? Or do you believe Mike's story was the truth? And was the finale satisfying or just safe? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, check out our Stranger Things playlist for more deep dives. And subscribe to Frame Drop so you don't miss future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.